Ukraine's strike on the Belgorod reservoir was not spectacle but strategy, a cold decision to turn terrain into a weapon and time into an accomplice. Russia's summer gains around Volchansk depended on firm ground, shallow crossings and dependable roads. One breach and the earth itself rebelled. Water poured through trenches, roads liquefied, dugouts became latrines, and the neat maths of supply was replaced by the chaos of mud. This is not romance, it's method. Cut the roots, drown the cover, strand the rash. Logistics first, heroics nowhere. What does this change? Everything that matters in that sector. Forward Russian elements that had inched over Severskia Donets now find the bridge between them and their magazines snapping under a brown irresistible current. Commanders face a miserable choice: pull back under fire or sit tight and watch ammunition. Fuel and batteries run down to fumes. The infantryman knows the truth before the staff does. When the ground betrays you, courage is taxed at usury. Vehicles bog, quads stall, mortars go quiet, and the opposing side, if it's patient, begins to harvest. The psychological shock is larger than the physical breach. Belgorod was supposed to be a sanctuary, rear area, reassuring, domestic. Instead, its officials talk of emergencies, evacuations, repeat strikes. The images are indelible: water ramming a damaged gate, trenches turned into sluices, soldiers cursing the flood as if it were a partisan. Morale doesn't fail in a blaze, it fails in a drip: wet feet, wet rations, wet powder, wet nerves. A single leak uncorks a wider panic, and the knowledge that Ukraine can reach out and unmake a landscape inside Russia lingers longer than any communique. There is history here, and it serves the point. In 1943, the RAF's dam-busters cracked Germany's industrial arteries to snarl transport, starve factories, and jolt a confident enemy. The ethical ledger was dark. The effect ultimately temporary, yet the principle was unmistakable: strike the hinge and the door will not swing. Ukraine has adapted this lesson with modern tools and a narrower aim. No Lancaster at 60 feet, no spinning cylinder, no thunder of Merlin engines. Instead, quiet drones, precise timing, and a target chosen for its military leverage rather than its symbolism. Same grammar, different syntax. Not a bid for glory, a bid for time, position, and bargaining strength. Russia can patch a dam. It cannot so easily patch the embarrassment. A state that promised safety at home is now sandbagging inside its own border. A command that boasted momentum is suddenly explaining why its spearhead cannot eat, charge, or charge its radios. This is what happens when a rigid army meets a fluid opponent. The rigid one drowns. Ukraine has made a habit of this kind of lateral shock. Refineries burn, a gunpowder plant goes dark, airfields grow nervous, and now the ground goes soft under the invader's boot. The pattern is the point. Keep the enemy busy in the wrong places and tired at the right ones. None of this is magic. Ukrainian units have not snapped their fingers and cleared the map. Russian artillery and drones still bite. Assaults continue. A dam doesn't fight your battle for you, but it edits the battle. Crossings wash out, resupply windows narrow, evacuation becomes a lottery. The tempo that Russia wanted, the grind, the shove, the maths of mass stutters. And once tempo goes, coordination goes. Once coordination goes, losses climb. Once losses climb, commanders start lying to superiors to survive the meeting as much as the front. War doesn't collapse in one blow, it unthreads. The strike pulls a visible thread. Listen also to the language from Kiev after the breach: tart, unillusioned, almost cruel. Expect more prisoners, they say, because stranded men surrender. That's not bravado, that's the logic of position. An army that cannot move forward and cannot be resupplied will eventually move backwards with its hands in the air. That reality frightens headquarters more than any claim about territory. Territory can be retaken. Broken formations cannot be put back together at speed. And what are the ethics? Water is a blunt instrument. Yet here the intent is targeted and unintelligible. To cripple military logistics in an active combat zone, not to punish civilians or wreck a region's basic life for its own sake. If Russia protests, it protests as the author of Nova Kakhovka, and the world remembers where that flood originated. The charge of hypocrisy floats poorly in a rising river. The larger truth is this: Ukraine has learned to make the environment treacherous for any occupier who mistakes maps for facts. Russia talks about freezing the front. Ukraine keeps it thawing. Russia wants fixed lines and a deal that cements its theft. Ukraine insists the ground is still moving under that fantasy, hence refineries, hence air bases, hence dams, not random blows, but a campaign to raise the cost of staying and the uncertainty of advancing. Don't overstate it. The dam busters didn't win the Second World War. This breach will not decide this one, but the analogy keeps its place. It earns its keep because it reminds us what audacity is for. It's not for the applause. It's for changing the calculus at the margin where battles are actually decided. Supply, timing, morale, and nerve. A few feet of water can level the troops into despair, can withdraw a month of plans. A week of mud can age a brigade into a rumour. One public humiliation can echo down a chain of command where truth is already a scarce commodity. So call it Ukraine's dam buster moment if you like. The label is tidy, the echo pleasing, the substance is harder and more useful though. It says to Moscow, your progress is provisional, your rear is porous, your mass is brittle, and even the rivers will judge you. It says to Kyiv's allies, the smartest aid is the kind that multiplies the enemy's own disadvantages. And it says to the soldiers soaked to the waist near Vovchansk, what they already know in their bones, that a campaign built on weight rather than wit will eventually find itself standing still in moving water.